Are you afraid of being Zoom bombed? Let's talk about this in today's episode of ICT in EDU. Hello folks, and welcome to ICT in EDU, where we help teachers teach and help students learn using ICT. So Zoom bombing has become a problem. It has become a big problem because a lot of teachers and students use Zoom on a daily basis to run their classes, especially in these times of COVID. Now, Zoom was developed and was actually founded a long time ago. It was founded since about 2011 by a guy called Eric Yuan, a Chinese guy who moved to the United States. And Zoom continued to build itself, and slowly but surely it was a great system. In fact, it is a great system. The strength of Zoom system is in its simplicity. So it's very easy to use. So hence, we have a lot of teachers who are using Zoom. Now, we have this called Zoom bombing, where users will actually come to harass the teacher or harass the students while they are having their classes. So how can we prevent this? I will show you in today's video how you could try your best and how Zoom actually has many measures in place that you can use to prevent Zoom bombing. So in fact, there was a recent report here in Trinidad and Tobago where a teacher was having her classes and a student was actually having pornographic material playing in the background. So I'll show you how you could prevent this from ever happening again in your classroom. So let's get right to it. Go ahead and open up Zoom. Here I have just opened up Zoom on my laptop, and now let's look at from the start. So you're gonna schedule your meeting. So in scheduling your meeting, you can change the name, the topic, set the date and the time and the duration. Now remember to always set your time zone. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are at GMT -4 time, so you can always figure out your time zone and set your time zone so the time will be synchronized to the time that the user will be attending your meeting. And here we have some settings that will bump up your security. So have it set on automatically generating a meeting ID. A password, require meeting password. In this case, you would have to send this password to your students and to anyone else who's going to be joining the meeting. You can email it to them, WhatsApp it to them. Here we have video. Here's dealing with the host video. When you initially go onto Zoom, it's actually set on off here in this case, but that has nothing to do with security. And just click on advanced options. Now this is very important to prevent Zoom bombing. Click on enable waiting room. Now it's very important for you to do that because when a user joins your meeting, you can see them queued up in a room area, and then you could let in the users that you recognize. Now if you don't recognize a user, then just don't let them in. Also, what I do with my students, I insist that students use their real names. So number one, if someone came with some strange name, I will not be letting them into the meeting. And that could also prevent Zoom bombers because they will not know the name that is supposed to be in your class and you just not let them in. Now you should keep this setting off, enable join before host, because I won't want my meeting members and my students joining my meeting without me being there. You can also mute participants on entry. That's nice for managing your class. And if you wanted to automatically record the meeting on the local computer, I can also do that right here. Okay, and you can synchronize it with the calendars when you schedule the meeting. So Under these advanced options, for sure, you should enable waiting room. Make sure you don't enable the host, join before host, and you can choose to mute your participants on entry. So let's look at some more settings that will prevent any possible Zoom bombers. Now, one thing that I must say, make sure that you download the latest version of Zoom. Here I have Zoom 5.0.1, which is the latest version right now. So make sure and download your latest version. It's the most secure version. So let's look at some more security features while you are inside of your meeting itself. Now, one thing I must add, the latest version of Zoom has what you call end-to-end encryption, which means it's very difficult for someone to intercept your meeting. In fact, it's almost impossible. If someone intercepts your meeting, they cannot see anything because it's encrypted or encoded. So they will not be able to take part in your meeting if they intercept the transmission. So if you look down below in your menu area, you would see some very interesting buttons down here. Click on the security button. So let's look at that. Now, these are some features that you can use to prevent the Zoom bombing. For example, you can lock your meeting. So after your class has started, or your meeting or your class has started, go ahead and you can lock your meeting. This will prevent anyone from entering your meeting or your class while it's going on. So that is important. You can go ahead and check that and lock your meeting. Now, I have enable waiting room enabled. Remember in the last settings we had something there with waiting room while we were scheduling the meeting. Well, now here you can enable or disable the waiting room while the meeting is going on. So for example, I can disable it and then I could just re-enable it while the class is going on. Now, this is very, very important here. This will prevent what happened with the last issue when someone got Zoom bombed very seriously and had pornographic material playing in the background. Now, you could disable screen sharing, and I would encourage you to disable screen sharing. So once you disable the screen sharing right there, they cannot write on any whiteboard or write anything on their screen and distract your class. Also, the chat, you could disable the chat for the participants. So the participants won't be able to chat amongst each other or send you messages, as in the case with Zoom bombing, the last case where someone was getting very bad messages from the person who Zoom bombed them. So you could uncheck that. Now we have renaming themselves. You could also enable or disable rename themselves. So if I have this checked, mean that they can rename themselves. If I have it unchecked, mean that they cannot rename themselves. So you would want that. You want your students to enter with the name that you know, their normal class name, and don't allow them to rename themselves while in the meeting. All right, and one final thing that you can do is normally, well, I'm not seeing it here, but normally you could have when you have your participants up, notice you can mute all your participants right here. Mute and unmute your participants. So let's look at some other options on the participants. When you hover over a participant or student's name, you can have the option of chatting with that student separately. You can also stop the video of that student or participant in case they are causing distractions, You can also spotlight that person and have them come up on the main screen. You can make them a host, make them a co-host. You can also allow them to record. By default, the normal user or participant cannot record your presentation. The host, it is reserved for the host only. You can allow them to rename themselves, and you can also remove a participant in case they are given some problems during the class, or if they happen to Zoom bomb. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of ICT and EDU, and I hope you can now go ahead and be very comfortable using Zoom with your students, and students feel free to use Zoom with your teachers. Stay tuned to future episodes of ICT and EDU, where we gonna look at some more stuff with Zoom and with all sorts of interesting platforms to make education fun and learning fun. Bye for now.